I'm betting the actors who starred in this movie wish they could see into the future. That way they can know how bad the box office would be. Hi, my name is Ryan Lane, and welcome to my... Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to bury the lead here. If you clicked on this video, you know what this review is about. It's about Madam Web, and if you're looking for a different opinion about Madam Web that goes against the grain of It's So Awful, I'm sorry to report, but you've come to the wrong place. It's as bad as you've heard, and I'm going to do my best to explain why, because sweet Jesus, this is the kind of film that requires a 30-minute video to do a play-by-play on what went wrong, or rather what went right, because that would be the easier task to do for any given scene in this movie. But I'm not that kind of reviewer, so I will simply stick to, the way I usually do reviews. Or kind of. I mean, I've already sort of blew past my intro, but I digress. Let's get into it. Let's start with the writing. The writing is awful on multiple levels. First off, the exposition. So much of the dialogue is just characters talking about themselves, characterization, backstory, in the most inorganic way possible. It's like this film took 4 writers to complete the screenplay, and it seems like none of them understood just basic screenwriting 101. And the said exposition is so heavy-handed in how it foreshadows the plot. The writing is also impressively scant on detail. Like, again, for example, Ezekiel, the film says he's like, some criminal enterprise leader, super rich, and yet the film does barely anything to flesh out the details. Like, is he a businessman? Does he run a tech company, oil company, makeup company? What? I mean, fill in the details here, movie. And then, the same also goes for all the other characters. The characterization and the backstory is so lacking in detail. I personally think this was a first draft movie because I refuse to believe that this is the best draft they could come up with. Like, it can't be. Otherwise, someone at Sony needs to get fired, whoever hired the set of writers to write Madam Web. The writing is also the kind of writing that requires characters to do stupid things, not because, it's a part of their characterization, it's how they'd act in a given sequence, but the stupidity is required to move the story forward. And then there are the comic book elements. By God, it's like the film tosses so many comic book elements at you, and yet film forgets to fill in all the details. Plus, the characters' powers, as in any comic book origin movie, the characters don't have a grasp on their power. But honestly, I don't think the writers knew what their powers were, because all the powers are sort of just introduced so haphazardly and so awkwardly. It's like, how do you get from here to there? And so that just left me confused as to who the hell these characters are. And bear in mind, I'm a newcomer, so if you're familiar with the Madam Web character or any other of the characters that appear in this movie, you're going to be lost. Or, well, I don't know, maybe you'll understand better, but for me, I was just lost. And then there's the cinematography. The film is so haphazardly edited, it makes last year's February comic book release, Ant-Man Quantumania, it makes it look good by comparison in terms of editing. The editing is so atrocious, it manages to make even the most geographically simple of action sequences so hard to follow. As with every cut that's made, spatial continuity is violated. Like, in the very first trailer that was released and how it opens with Dakota, with Madam Web at a diner, and how that scene felt so awkwardly edited. Yeah, in the movie, it's even worse. That's how bad the editing was. Like, I thought, they just hired an incompetent editing team to do the trailer, but no. In fact, that was probably the better reproduction of that scene that you could probably get for that movie. And then there's the VFX. Like, Either this film needed more money or more time because the visual effects look so fake. Like at one point, a character holds a jar with a spider in it that looks so clearly CG. Well, okay, I won't say CGI, because whole anti-CGI backlash. But still, the spider looks so fake. It is just so awful. This film manages to make the VFX in Morbius look good by comparison. And if you've noticed, I'm saying, this film managed to make insert bad movie here look good by comparison. Yeah, that's how bad this movie is. And then there's the acting, the elephant in the room. Personally, I think the actors must have been engaged in a competition to see who could give the worst performance, because that's the only way I can explain how there were so many bad performances across the board in this movie. Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, and especially Tahar Rahim were so stilted in their line delivery that they brought absolutely nothing of interest to their characters. And especially Tahar Rahim, he had some egregious bad ADR dubbing for his dialogue. Like the way his lips move does not match the IO coming out of his mouth. And on that note, this film uses so much ADR to plug in narrative gaps. It's like the filmmakers couldn't trust the audience, to keep up with the plot. And so they're like, okay, we gotta call in the actors and, have dub in some dialogue when their mouths aren't on camera. And even actors like Adam Scott, who managed to turn in maybe not a good performance per se, but certainly at least a performance. It feels like he's having at least a character of sorts. Even he is still restrained by the awful dialogue. The characters have no chemistry with each other, and any attempts at developing camaraderie between them is either so boringly inane or so facepalm yourself stupid in terms of levels of dumb. Overall, Madame Web is what Morbius wishes it could be, i.e., a movie so bad it has to be seen to be believed. Because despite all the bajillion memes, oh, it's Morbin time, Morbius is, it's just a bad movie. It's too polished to be so bad it's good, and yet it's too bad to be of compelling. It's just bad. Years ago I gave Morbius a 2 out of 5. It's bad, but it's not worth the memes. Madame Web, on the other hand, is worth the memes and so much more. Madame Web will be taught in film schools as to how to not write, edit, or direct a comic book movie, or just any movie in general. It's the only reason why I'm giving this movie a half-star out of 5. Because if it weren't for the unintentional hilarity this film generates, this film would be worse than anyone but you. That's how bad this movie is, folks. And as I've said before, this is just the tip of the iceberg for how bad the Madame Web is. I actually participated in a live stream with Zach Milne Talks Movies, and he'll be releasing a video next week on Monday where I and a few others, the Ace, Optimistic Forever, and Have You Seen That with T? We all discuss Madame Web in a spoiler section, I should note, but honestly, are you really going to go see Madame Web? Anyway, you can check out my more of my thoughts there. And so with all that in mind, I will be giving Madame Web a half-star out of 5. So thank you for watching, and have a good rest of your day. If you like this review and would like to see more like it, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. And for today's comment section prompt of the day, what is your favorite so bad it's good movie and why?